Well, I went to an extension meeting and a corn growers meeting south of Waterloo at Hawkeye Tech. I believe it was at the Earl Youngblood farm. He was on a corn grower association, and they talked about gasohol at that time. Senator Grassley was a young man, believe it or not, and I believe he's at the State House here in Des Moines at that time, so like it had to have been late 70s or early 80s when that meeting was held. And I thought, boy, are they nuts? They're going to take corn and turn it into fuel? And it's hard to imagine what has happened in all the years since that time. Well, during the 80s farm crisis, there were a lot of years that weren't very profitable, and we relied quite heavily on the government subsidies. George Cummins, extension director up at Charles City for Floyd County, was putting on some value-added classes that one winter, and I went up and started taking those classes and looking at different things we could do to add value. Marion Kegley and Stan Lowers asked me, well, Jerry, we're thinking of starting Golden Grain Energy. Do you want to come and sit in on a couple meetings? And so I went to New Hampton, and it's been quite a ride in the last 23 years, but there were some hiccups along the way, of course, but I think it took us like 18 months to raise the equity we needed. We needed to raise, I think, $27.5 million in the 9-county area. And we all went to a lot of different meetings, put them on, and we raised the money and got the loan. It was very interesting to meet with farmers, and it was a big risk for us founders at that time to knowing you could lose it all. It all seemed to work out many times over. It's really been tremendous economic impact it's had in the 9-county area. Even the people that did not invest have the shipping of their grain, instead of going clear to Cedar Rapids or over to the river, is about a fourth of the mileage now compared to what it used to be. So you got a lot less wear and tear on the trucks and cost savings in that regard. The livestock industry, which is really vital here in Iowa, which Kathy and I used to be pork producers and cattle producers. The nutritionists found ways to incorporate the DDGs into rations and make it profitable to feed them. And actually now I believe they are able to create lower cost rations because of the DDGs. That's fortunate for everybody in Iowa and throughout the Midwest, because those dollars fed to the livestock industry and our corn growers, get turned over in the community 5 to 7 times, and that's a huge multiplier for economic development. I think anybody could have envisioned the growth we've seen, like from 2005 to 2010 or 2015. Even the predecessor, Bob Dean, he was always very positive, and Ron Fagan was very positive, but in their wildest dreams, I don't think anybody would have thought that we would grow from 3 or 4 billion gallon production up to 15 and 16 billion in that time span. It was quite remarkable what we did. I remember George W. questioned, he said, we got to lessen our dependence on foreign oil, and the American farmer definitely helped in that regard. As farmers, historically, we were increasing our yields 1 to 1.5 bushel per acre per yield. And within the last 20 years now, we're increasing our yields to 2.5 bushel per acre per year, unless there's a drought or something out of the normal happening. Along with the farmer's efficiency, our ethanol plants have gone from like a 2.7 conversion rate up to a little bit over 3 or 3.1. And so they're more efficient. They're using less water. They're using less electricity to make that ethanol. It's quite remarkable. When Kathy and I first invested in value-added ventures, me and my accountant kind of sat down and what we called corn bushel equivalents of ethanol stock. How many bushels am I protecting? Because we got into it more or less as a hedge. If the price of corn was cheap, we would make up for it with the ethanol price. And that was kind of true for a while. They were all hooked to the same drawbar. But as the years went on, it was quite remarkable. We had some years when corn prices were sky high, and so were ethanol profits. And the number of shares we bought into the plants seemed to equate pretty good as our operation was growing. We have a son and son-in-law farming with us now too, farming my brother's land. The plants have also grown and they're more efficient. At Golden Green, we started out as a 40 and ramped it up to about 60, 65 million gallon, and we built an additional sister plant right beside it so they could work together, and now it's up to about 130, 135 million gallon plant. So our shares have more production on a corn bushel or ethanol per share basis than, I don't know if anybody can compete with Golden Grain on a gallons of production per share outstanding. I'm sure someone has somewhere, I'm just not aware of it. Very fortunate indeed. Everybody wanted to build in the Chickasaw, New Hampton area. We had a site selection committee, and they did a feasibility study and this and that, and where's our best location? And time again, it come up at Mason City. And then there were some original members that wanted it to be in a business structure like a co-op where you had corn delivery requirements. That kind of wasn't what everybody wanted, because we had a lot of investors that were non-farmers. So then there was a change in leadership before we really got this thing off the ground good. There's different viewpoints, but that time Walt Wendland became president and worked very hard, and all of the original founders at the Equity Drive to get the thing up and going. And so we continued to grow, and then I guess we invested in Absolute Energy. And then we invested in Homeland Energy and their equity drives to get them up and going. I believe now at Golden Grain, about a third of the revenue comes from peripheral investments. I can remember after the difficult years when Guardian and Verison and those plants got financial trouble. I remember going up to Janesville, Minnesota with Steve Core and Chris Schwark and talking to those investors up there at an open house. That there was a lot of nervousness because a lot of them farmers had contracts where they had lost money and had to commit corn. And what's this new ownership of Guardian going to do to revitalize that plant? And boy, I'm glad that turned out well up there. They have a beautiful rail yard, and Gene does a great job up there at Guardian. And I'm thankful that Golden Grain had the vision to get involved with that at a very bleak time. It was difficult in a couple of years there, but we managed to get through it, and things have been very rewarding since. Well, I think getting through the farm crisis of the 80s and with my family, Kathy and I worked very hard with the livestock industry over the years, promoting pork and beef. All four of our kids, we got through college. It was after that, during the 90s, we got through it, but we rented most all of our land. We didn't own much at that time, and we had some very good landlords that worked with us. Thankful that we got involved with the ethanol industry. I sold seed from 82 to 93, and that kind of helped, and I think it was just normal. All farmers have seemed to have to rely either on a livestock industry or an off-farm position to help cover expenses and insurance and stuff, and getting through that, pretty proud of that. Proud of the years. Then I got involved with Golden Grain, and subsequently with raising money in the equity drive for Homeland over at New Hampton, and serving on that board and that risk management committee a couple of years. We put that company on very solid footing. We paid off a lot of debt, really strengthened that balance sheet. So when hard times came, they endured that. And then when it was time to expand and grow, they were ready to do it. They had the backing, and I got to give credit to Chad Coolers. He was on that board as well, and Chad has been very instrumental in our local area as well as a national level, and making sure these plants run right and do well. From my doorstep, I can see the TO water vapor from 4 ethanol plants, Lawler, Fairbanks, Shell Rock, and Charles City, and most of my grain goes up to Homeland. But once in a while, I'll sell some to Shell Rock or Fairbanks, but glad to support them and the people that work there. It's really been remarkable. I feel optimistic that we can continue to grow and be more efficient. As farmers, we need that outlet for our additional bushels of corn. When you hear of the national corn growers growing 500 and 600 bushel per acre, the potential for continued growth is there. We need to continue to find markets for our product and to be efficiently growing it, which we have. The hybrids of today are so much more efficient than the ones of the past. Their standability is better. We have run some of the CI formulas and through Iowa State and stuff. And, if we can be producing a bushel of corn on 7/10 of a unit of nitrogen, that's where we need to be. And we'll continue to do that. Continue to work with the Soil Health Initiative to conserve and protect our ground and hopefully continue to find markets for the future so we can keep the economies going. Right now, rented ground is not very profitable. Cash flows don't look very well, but I fed cattle for a lot of years. You always got to bounce back on your experiences because there were years like you would never ever thought you'd make a dime, and by the time the year was over, you did okay. And then there were years where you thought, boy, you couldn't do anything and wrong, and then you were lucky to break even. So you just got to be resilient and keep working for the future.